I still remember the first time I met him. It was at a gathering I didn't even want to attend. One of those evenings where you promise yourself you'll leave after half an hour. And yet, the moment he walked in, it felt as if the air shifted. He smiled in a way that made you feel like the only person in the room. He asked questions no one else asked. He noticed things no one else noticed. And in that moment it felt less like meeting a stranger and more like being seen for the very first time. The conversation was effortless. He told me I was special, different, extraordinary even. Words that slipped into my mind like warm light on a cold night. I laughed more in that 1 hour than I had in months. By the end of the evening I was convinced that this meeting wasn't chance. It was destiny. Looking back now, I realized destiny had nothing to do with it. It was design, a carefully constructed performance, a trap disguised as a gift. Psychologists have a term for this first act: love bombing. It's the intoxicating flood of attention, compliments, and validation that feels like nourishment to a starving soul. In reality, it's bait. Carl Jung might have called it an enchantment, a projection of the persona, the mask one wears to hide the truth beneath. The narcissist thrives not by showing you who they truly are, but by showing you who you desperately want them to be. In those first days and weeks, you're not meeting the real person. You're meeting a mirror. Every word, every gesture reflects back your deepest longings. They study you with the precision of an artist sketching a portrait, capturing your hopes, fears, and insecurities, not to understand you but to use you. This is the first phase of the cycle, idealization. Here they make you feel not just loved but chosen. You become the center of their universe, or at least that's what it looks like. It's a feeling so rare, so euphoric, that you ignore the tiny inconsistencies, the subtle signs that something is off. But the cracks always appear. It might be a sarcastic comment, slipped into a moment of joy, a sudden withdrawal of affection after you've done something they don't like. The warmth that once poured from them now feels conditional, rationed out like a scarce resource. At first you blame yourself. You try harder. You tell yourself it's stress, or a bad week, or maybe you said something wrong. And that's exactly what they want, for you to believe the problem is you. Carl Jung wrote that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The darkness in this story isn't just in them. It's in the part of us that wants so badly to be validated that we accept the illusion. It's the shadow within us, silently agreeing to the terms of our own exploitation. As the idealization phase fades, the second act begins, devaluation. This is where the narcissist subtly rewrites reality. What was once celebrated about you is now criticized. What once made you special now makes you too much or not enough. Your confidence starts to erode under the weight of small, constant jabs. Think of it like a sculptor, except their goal is not to create beauty, but to chip away at you until you're small enough to fit in the palm of their hand. The most dangerous thing about a narcissist is not their cruelty, but how sweet they can be right after. These moments of kindness, the sudden apology, the unexpected gift, the rare smile, they're not genuine reconnection. They're resets, keeping you in the cycle. Just enough warmth to keep you from walking away. Just enough hope to make you believe the person you fell for is still in there somewhere. In mythology, this is the same spell the sirens sang to lure sailors into shipwreck. It's beauty with teeth. You don't notice the rocks until you're already breaking against them. Jung's idea of the shadow explains part of why these relationships are so magnetic. The narcissist projects their unwanted darkness onto you, and you, often unconsciously, carry it for them. You start feeling emotions that don't belong to you. Their shame, their insecurity, their rage. And while you're busy managing all that, they remain untouchable. The truth is, a narcissist doesn't want a partner. They want a stage, and you, in their mind, are there to deliver the lines they've already written. The more you play along, the more the original you starts to disappear. Friends notice you've changed. Family says you're quieter. You stop recognizing your own reflection, not just in the mirror, but in the way you think, speak, and move. And yet, leaving feels impossible, not because you can't survive without them, but because you've forgotten what surviving alone even looks like. They've made themselves the axis around which your world spins, and stepping away feels like inviting collapse. But collapse is sometimes the only path to freedom. The hardest truth to face is that the person you miss never actually existed. That's the thing about masks. When they fall, you realize there was no face underneath, only another mask. And that's where we leave the first act of this story, standing at the edge of realization, but not yet ready to step through it. If the first act is seduction, the second is control. By now, the narcissist has mapped your emotional landscape with precision. Every insecurity, every desire, every wound you've tried to hide from the world, and with that map, they begin to redraw the borders. At first, it's subtle. They might question your memory. Are you sure that's how it happened? They might reinterpret your feelings. You're overreacting. I was just joking. This is not confusion by accident. It's confusion by design. Gaslighting isn't about making you believe their truth. It's about making you doubt your own. Carl Jung once said, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of its parents." For many narcissists, that burden has turned into a curse. Their unlived life, their denied potential, becomes a hunger they try to feed through control of others. And when you're in their orbit, you become the meal. In this stage, the narcissist stops trying to impress you and starts training you. Every interaction is a test, though you'll rarely know the rules until you've already failed them. They punish deviation from the script with silence, coldness, or calculated disapproval. And then, without warning, they'll reward compliance with sudden affection. This is the hook, the unpredictable rhythm that keeps you dancing to their tune. Psychologists call it intermittent reinforcement. It's the same principle that makes slot machines addictive. The uncertainty of reward. If you knew for sure you wouldn't get love, you'd leave. If you knew for sure you would get it, you'd relax. But when it comes sometimes and disappears sometimes, your brain becomes obsessed with earning it back. And here's the cruel brilliance. While you're trying to win their love, you stop asking whether they deserve yours. Jung might say this is where the shadow truly awakens. The parts of you you've disowned. Fear of abandonment, need for validation, belief that love must be earned, all rise to the surface. The narcissist doesn't create these wounds, but they know exactly how to press on them until you can't think of anything else. The narcissist doesn't just break boundaries, they make you believe there shouldn't be any. This erosion happens slowly. Maybe you stop seeing certain friends because they don't understand the relationship. Maybe you share less with family because you're tired of explaining. Maybe you give up hobbies, clothes, music, even opinions because you've learned which ones get a reaction and which ones don't. In mythology, this is the labyrinth. You walk deeper and deeper, thinking you're making progress toward the center, only to realize there's no way out. Except here, the Minotaur isn't chasing you, it's feeding you breadcrumbs to keep you walking in circles. Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming fully yourself, integrating all aspects of your psyche. The narcissist's game is the opposite, disintegration. They pull you apart piece by piece, keeping the fragments that serve them and discarding the rest. And in the quiet moments, you start to notice something terrifying. You're not sure who you are without their voice in your head. The most dangerous prisons are the ones you don't realize you're in. This is where shame takes root. You tell yourself you should have seen it earlier. You should have left sooner. You should have been stronger. But shame is the narcissist's favorite tool. It keeps you from speaking out, from seeking help, from believing anyone else could understand. And then comes the final act of the cycle: discard. Sometimes it's abrupt. They vanish without explanation, leaving you in a free fall. Sometimes it's slow, a gradual pulling away until you realize they've already replaced you in their mind. Discard isn't just about leaving, it's about erasing. They rewrite the story so they're the victim and you're the villain. They tell others you were unstable, jealous, controlling. They make you question whether you were the narcissist all along. The final cruelty is that they leave you holding the ghost of someone who never existed. Jung warned about identification, the danger of defining yourself entirely through another person. When that identity is ripped away, it feels like death. Not the death of a person, but the death of the self you became in their presence. In the aftermath, your mind replays every conversation, every fight, every look, searching for the moment it all turned. But there is no single moment. The cycle is not a straight line. It's a spiral, and unless you break it, it will lead you back to the beginning with someone else wearing the same mask. Healing begins when you stop asking why they did it and start asking why you stayed. This is not victim blaming. It's reclaiming power. When you understand the needs, fears, and patterns that kept you in the labyrinth, you begin to see the threads that can lead you out. And that's where the work begins. Not in changing them, because you can't, but in changing the part of you that believed their love was the only kind worth having. In next part, we will step fully into the process of breaking free. How to confront the shadow, reclaim your identity, and rebuild in a way that makes you unrecognizable to the kind of person who would ever try to control you again. Because the real revenge against a narcissist isn't anger. It's becoming someone they could never shape. The day I left wasn't a grand finale. It wasn't screaming in the driveway, bags thrown into the back seat, tires screeching into the night. It was quieter, almost too quiet. It was a Tuesday morning. Thin rain tapped against the windows. The world outside dulled in soft grays. I stood in the kitchen, hands wrapped around a coffee that had long gone cold. In the next room, they were on the phone, their voice warm, lilting, the same voice they had once used for me. I used to feel a rush of jealousy in moments like that, then suspicion, then panic. But this time, I felt nothing. And in that absence, I realized something extraordinary. My heart had already left. Leaving a narcissist is rarely one brave cinematic leap. It's 1,000 small awakenings. It's realizing the apology you've been waiting for will never come. It's accepting that closure isn't something they hand to you like a gift. It's something you carve out for yourself in the quiet when no one is watching. The real escape happens in the mind before it happens in the body. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." I had been living in that unconscious space for years, mistaking intensity for intimacy, chaos for love. The narcissist had not invented those beliefs in me. They had simply spoken to the oldest, most unhealed parts of me. When I finally began to pull away, I expected relief. Instead, the world felt foreign. I stood in grocery aisles, unable to choose between two brands of bread. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, radio off, unable to decide if I wanted to go home or drive aimlessly. just to avoid the silence of my own apartment. In the beginning, recovery didn't look like freedom. It looked like confusion. But every small act became a seed of something new. I wore colors I hadn't worn in years. I ordered food without wondering what they would think of my choice. I called an old friend, my voice shaking, and told them the truth about why I had vanished. Healing forced me to turn toward my shadow, the part of me that still craved their approval, the part that feared I was unlovable without it. Jung called the shadow the seat of both our wounds and our potential. It's where we bury the truths we don't want to see, and in burying them we give them the power to run our lives. Some days the pull was strong. I'd remember the early days, the intoxicating flood of attention, and I'd almost convince myself I'd imagined the cruelty that followed. But then a memory would flash, the look in their eyes when I was crying, not with concern but with irritation, and I'd remember why I left. Healing isn't about becoming who you were before. It's about becoming someone you've never had the chance to be. The months after leaving were not linear. Some days I felt untouchable. Other days I stared at my phone, fighting the urge to send a message I knew I'd regret. I learned to sit with the discomfort instead of running from it. That was when individuation, Jung's idea of integrating the self, began to make sense. It wasn't about erasing my past or pretending the relationship had never happened. It was about taking every piece of the experience, even the ugliest, and folding it into who I was becoming. I started writing, pages and pages of letters I would never send, conversations I would never have. The words bled out of me like venom, and slowly, the poison lost its sting. I reconnected with my body, walks in the park, yoga in my living room, dancing to music I hadn't heard since before them. The music was a time machine carrying me back to a self I thought I had lost forever. As seasons shifted, I noticed changes so subtle I might have missed them if I wasn't paying attention. I laughed more easily. I made eye contact with strangers. I didn't flinch when someone disagreed with me. And one day, months later, I realized I had gone a whole week without thinking about them at all. Not because I was forcing myself to forget, but because my life was finally full enough to leave no room for them. The greatest revenge is not anger. It's becoming so whole that the version of you they once knew no longer exists. By then, I had stopped checking their social media, stopped imagining the perfect confrontation, stopped rehearsing the speech that would make them finally understand what they had done. I didn't need it anymore, because the truth was simple. I had already won, not in the way revenge fantasies promise, but in the quiet, grounded way of someone who has reclaimed their own story. So if you're listening to this and you feel trapped, if you're waiting for the perfect sign to leave, let me tell you, that sign is you. It's your own exhaustion, your own longing for peace. It's the still, small voice that says, I can't do this anymore. The door is already open. The only question is whether you're ready to walk through it. And when you do, don't run. Walk slowly, breathe deeply, and don't look back. Keep watching. Train the knowledge you've gained here until it becomes part of who you are. And before you go, tell me in the comments, what insight did you take from this story? Your words might be the very light someone else needs to see the path out.